First, we all know that to conduct an effective teaching, we need to provide students within their diverse classroom community with different opportunities for understanding new information so that all students within a classroom can learn more effectively regardless of differences in their ability. We are going to be exploring and discussing more about what differentiated instruction is, the goals of differentiated instruction, and the importance of knowing our students with our today's presenter, Pak Munas Priyanto Ramli, PhD. Hello, Pak Munas. How are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Okay. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our presenter. Pak Munas Priyanto Ramli is a lecturer at Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta. He did his bachelor degree at Universitas Indonesia, majoring in chemistry. He obtained his master degree from McGill University, Canada, and he completed his doctoral degree at the University of Manchester, United Kingdom, focusing on education. Pak Munas is also the founder of ABAC Academy. He is experienced in developing and managing events, providing training for teachers on pedagogical skills and science content, as well as in character building. He is also involved as a consultant for the development and constructions of schools and non-formal educational institutions such as homeschooling. Before we begin, I want to remind you again about to stay muted during the webinar unless the speaker asks you to speak. And if you have any questions or things you want to ask to our today's presenter, you can just write your questions in the group chat. And the speaker will answer the questions during the Q&A session. And as usual, at the end of the webinar, there will be an assessment that you need to take as a requirement to get a certificate. And the link will be shared later. Okay, I think it's time to begin the presentation. Are you ready, Pak Munas?
Yes, inshallah.
Okay, time is yours.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Willie. Good morning, everyone. All right, it's very nice.
Morning, sir.
All right, it's very nice to be here in these virtual meeting rooms. Hope all the participants are fine and are ready to discuss about the differentiated instruction. And thank you so much, Pak Willie, and also Eduversal to provide me a space to talk and discuss about an approach on teaching and learning focus on differentiated curriculum. All right, next slide, please.
Wait, Pak Munas,
Yeah.
let me ask the host to give me permissions to share the slide.
All right. Sorry.
Wait for a moment. Okay, thank you. Now let me share the PowerPoint. Can you see it, Pak Munas?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Pak Willie. So next, yeah. So this is the outline of our today discussion. We're gonna start with an introduction, and then what is a differentiated instruction, and rationale and goal of DI. We just call it DI for all students, and what is it says about DI, and how to manage differentiated classroom, and the elements of differentiations. That will be the outline for today's discussion. All right, next. Yeah, before we start, let me reintroduce myself. Pak Willie already introduced me. Yeah, my name is Munas Priyanto Ramli. Later on, if you want to communicate with me after the session, you can call me Munas, yeah, Pak Munas. Musyawarah Nasional, yeah, stands for Musyawarah Nasional. Yes, Musyawarah Nasional, because I was born while my dad attending one national meeting or Musyawarah Nasional. So then my dad gave me name Munas Priyanto Ramli or Munas. I got my bachelor degree from the University of Indonesia, majoring in chemistry. But after I graduate from this university, I moved a bit to science education because I think that the field of education is more interesting and more challenging compared to chemistry. So then I moved to science education or education. I earned a master degree from McGill University, and I just complete my PhD 2 years ago from University of Manchester. Actually, my real journey in education start from 2006 when I joined Surya Institute, the foundation that established by Professor Rane Surya as a trainer for teaching primary and secondary science and a consultant for developing gifted and talented classroom and school. All right, and for my social media account, you can see on the screen, my WhatsApp number is there. My Facebook and Instagram is Munas Ramli. You can follow it later. And my email, there's no my email there. My email address is munasramli@gmail.com. Okay. As Mr. Willie said, please be ready with your snacks and your drinks and fasten your seat belts and let's go. Next. All right. What is differentiated instruction? Before we jump to definition, I will ask you to contemplate. Okay, I will ask you to close your eyes and please remain your eyes closed until I instruct you to open your eyes. Okay, everyone, is that clear? I will ask you to close your eyes and then please your eyes remain closed until I instruct you to open your eyes. Let's start. Please close your eyes. Close your eyes, everybody. Think about one class that you teach. I know some of you are teaching at primary schools, some of you are teaching at secondary schools for certain subject. Please think about one class that you teach. Use your memory to recall students' name in that class. And try to imagine the students that come to that class. Now, you are entering the class. Let's say you have more than 10 students in the class. Your students may have many things in common because they are human beings and because they are all children. But bear in mind, they also have important differences. What we share in common makes us human. However, when we differ to others, makes us individuals. Your students may come from different cultures, values, and have different learning styles. They arrive at schools with different levels of emotional and social maturity. Please try to recall the name, some of the higher achiever, or maybe some of that you call quite difficult in the classroom. Some of the students may come from wealthy family, while others may come from the poor family. Some already read materials before they come to your class, while others lack of preparing materials. Some students like to work alone, others like to work in a group. Some students coming with a happy face to the classroom, while others maybe come with a sad face. So, in terms of education needs, our learners are individuals. Each has strengths and weaknesses as a person. If they are different, so why should we teach them in the same way every single day? As a teacher, we should allow each learner to make progress in his or her own way. Not every student in your class as bright as Einstein. Some may be having a good voice and they can be the next Michael Jackson. Or some may be a good football player, so they can be the next Muhammad Salah. Some may be good at cooking, so they can be the next Gordon Ramsay. Some are very smart, so they can be the next Habibi. So yes, you class are, the students in your class are different. Yeah. So your class is so rich, so colorful. Now, please open your eyes. Can we move to the next slide? All right. Let's think about this quote from Ann Tomlinson. Tomlinson is an important figure in the field of education. She is educators and also speakers and author. And of course, she's a key person for the developing of differentiated instruction. So one of the quote is, a mistake we often make in education is to plan the curriculum materials very carefully, arrange all the instructional materials wall to wall, open the doors of the school, and then find to our dismay that they have sent us the wrong kids. Yeah, sometimes maybe in the teaching room, yeah, teacher says, why they send us these kids? This kid is so difficult. Sometimes teachers label like students with, this kind of troublemaker students. Why do they send this kid to the school? Why should he or she be in my classroom? But that's not a problem, actually. Our role as a teacher is to be an inspirator, motivator, so that for whatever reason the children come to our class, they are our students and we have to teach them. All right, next slide, please. So Tomlinson said that differentiation in a simple way is giving students multiple options for taking in information. Means that teachers should promoting learning through various strategies, so then the learning won't be boring anymore. Next. Yeah. And according to Tony Tazent, another key important person in differentiation instruction, DI is a philosophy of teaching and learning which recognizes that each learner is unique. And I do believe that all the participants here also believe every student in their classroom is unique. So then differentiation instruction is a response to that uniqueness. Consequently, in DI classroom, not every student is doing exactly the same thing in exactly the same way at exactly the same time. So there's going to be the various activities in one classroom. Next. In line with the Tizant, Tomlinson defined that DI as taking up what goes on the classroom so that students have multiple options for taking in information, making sense of ideas and expressing what they learn. DI provides different avenues to acquiring content, to processing or making sense of ideas, and to developing products so that each student can learn effectively. So in the DI classroom, then they're gonna be like a place that promoting the effectiveness learning so the students can grow best of their interests. Next. Why do we need the DI in our classrooms? As Tyson says that every student is unique. Students coming to your classroom are very diverse. Some coming from the wealthy family, some are smart, others maybe you consider as slow learner. So yeah, students in each classroom vary greatly. Since they are unique and they vary greatly, one size fits all approach won't work in the classroom. One single recipe to teach all students in your classroom won't work. Take an example, you have 3 kids, 3 children, 14, 10, or 6 years old. It's 2 weeks before Lebaran Day, or Eid Mubarak, or Christmas. And you want to buy them t-shirt and jeans. The question is, will you buy the same size, all size jeans or t-shirt for that 3 children? I bet you won't. Why? Because it won't fit your children. It's similar with education. With one size fits for all approach won't be effective in our classroom. The next, please next. Okay, so why we need DI approach? Let's borrow the voice from Carol Tomlinson. Yeah. Tomlinson say why we need DI. First, because students have different backgrounds and interests. There is no guarantee that they'll find the same things personally meaningful. Sometimes maybe they're interested in math or in science, and others interest in art, for example. Because students learn at different rates, a pace, takes, or task that challenges for some students maybe will frustrate other students. That's why sometimes we have a label, he is the fast learner, he is slow learner. So the challenge will different for every student. At any time, some students will think more concretely, and sometimes students like to think more abstractly. Some more dependently, like to work to do a task alone, and others more independently. Yeah. So some students like to work in groups, some like to work alone, some like to work in pairs. They are different. Next. So it's assured that the best student won't all opt to learn in the same way, make the same choice, or feel in control with the same parameters in each lesson. Why we need DI? Because they don't all know the same things at the same degree of competency. Students will construct knowledge differently. If we look at the Vygotsky or Piaget in terms of constructivism or social constructivism, each student will construct their knowledge by themselves. Yeah, so then they will know something at different parameters and a different competency. Students will vary in the amount of collaboration, the need, and the sort of peers with whom they work best. What is helpful feedback for one student might not be for another. So then teachers also need to implement different strategies in giving a feedback. Next. What is helpful feedback for one student may not be for another, like I said before, is students need to acquire strategies new to that student and use them in ways that are personally helpful. Classroom are quite positive for some students, are maybe distinctly not so for other students. Students will need varied scaffolding to achieve both common and personal goals. And Vygotsky says that the interaction in the classroom, interaction between student and teachers, teachers and students, students and students, in the small group and the big group and the classroom, it can be a scaffolding for the students to learn. So that's the reason why we need GI in our classroom. Yes, next. Okay, please see the pictures. I think when you see the pictures, it will throw your memory back for 20 years ago when you are in primary schools. Yeah, this is the typical pictures drawn for students across Indonesia, from Sabang to Merauke, regardless the hometown, the village. They draw the similar pictures when a teacher asked them to draw landscape. So even you go to the let's say the village near the beach, when I was kids, if a students ask them to draw a landscape, they're gonna draw this kind of landscape. Even students in Jakarta, they don't see a mountain every single day. They don't even see a farming area. But when a teachers ask them to draw about the scenery, about the landscape, they're coming with this kind of pictures. Why? Because this kind of product of little or no differentiated classroom. The teachers come to the same teachers training, and they are teaching to deliver a curriculum, and this how to draw the landscape, beautiful landscape. So across Indonesia, from Sabang to Merauke, when we ask them to draw a beautiful landscape, they're gonna have like 2 mountains, and there is a sun in the middle, there's a road, and there's a paddy field. Yeah, that's the reality. Next. And what about this slide? Yeah. Please see these pictures, this beautiful cartoon. Yeah. And what can you say about this? Think about it. I give you about 3 minutes to think about it. Write on the chat box. What do you think about these pictures or about this cartoon? Okay, everyone, see the pictures on the screen and what do you think about it? Give you 3 minutes. All right, I did some. When teacher teach something, it doesn't. Teaching is totally different with learning. The teacher only care on teaching, doesn't make sure the students understand. Important to know students' profile so that we know that each of them. All right. Maybe Ibu Winda Ismi, can you share a bit with us your opinion?
Habis mana peluit? Yang gue tahu lagi. Permisi.
Okay, yeah, I don't hear anything. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, some of the teacher says that teachers does really care about what they teach. Yeah, it's happened sometimes in many classroom. A teacher just get the curriculum done. Yeah, what's important for the teachers is they teach everything in the curriculum, and they don't care whether the students improve, whether the student understand, as long as they already deliver all the curriculum, they think that their job is done. So like what happened here. I taught Stripe how to whistle, but I don't hear him whistling. I said I taught him, I didn't say he learned. So when we only care about our roles as curriculum deliver, yeah, then we miss about the chance for our student to learn. And it really happens sometimes, especially when there is a pressure about exam, let's say national exam or regional exam. A teacher just drill all the students and they don't care whether the students understand or not, because the goal at the time is only for getting the high grade for the exams. This will happen everywhere if teachers don't really care about their students, if they don't try to start implemented a DI. Okay, the next. So what does research says about the differentiated curriculum? Students are more successful in school if they are taught in ways that are responsive for their readiness levels, interest, and learning profiles. So there's three keys here: readiness levels, interest, and learning profiles. Differentiated instruction is the result of synthesis of a number of educational theories and practices. Psychological research believes that when interest is tapped, learners are more likely to find learning rewarding and become more autonomous as learners. Next. So yes, our lives is dynamic and it's always pros and cons regarding the social, arts, and humanities issues. And of course, also there are pros and cons regarding the differentiated instruction. If there's no pro and cons about any issues, our life won't be colorful like this. So what are the supporters of DI says? Next. So the pros of DI says that research shows differentiated instruction is effective for all students, not only for the gifted students, not only for special needs or different ability students, but for all students. Students will take on more responsibility for their own learning when they are given more options on how they can learn materials. Students engage in learning, and there are reportedly fewer discipline problems in classroom where teachers provide differentiated lessons. That's an opinion from the pros. What about the cons side? Next. There are some criticisms, especially from some teachers. They said that differentiated instruction requires more work, more time, and as a teacher, they are struggling to find extra time to plan the lesson, to deliver the DI strategies. So they can't deliver all the curriculum. Another con, some schools lack of professional development resources. There is no professional development training regularly. So there is no support for teachers to upgrading their skills. So they cannot implement it, let's say, the kind of new approach in teaching and learning. And there's not enough research to support the benefits of differentiated instruction, outweighing the added preparation time. So this says that the research is not enough about this DI. Even if you see there's quite a lot of research about differentiated instruction and curriculum to every single student in the classroom. So these are the pros and cons about the differentiated instruction. Next. However, even though there is a pros and cons, research says that more and more teachers now shift their approach from non-differentiated instruction or more unitary classroom to differentiated instruction. Yeah. Why? Because they understand that, the teachers understand that every single student is unique and they are different from other students. Let's see, when you want to cook a pizza, yeah, you have a recipe, but it's kind of a recipe for a general pizza. You come to the kitchen, you prepare for the dough and other important ingredients. But at the end, you can add some topping based on your kids' needs. Some may be like tuna mushroom, some may be like chicken, some may be like sweet corn. So the curriculum just a recipe, and then the teachers as curriculum deliver has to modify it and adapt it various strategies to deliver such curriculum. That's why now there's a paradigm shift from more unitary classroom to differentiated classroom. Next. So if you want to implement the DI approach in the classroom, what is the teacher's role? Some maybe argue that we have not been trained for implementing the DI approach. There is no such of this approach when we are in university, when we are in Faculty of Education. But we should remember the teachers are also a learner. Yeah. And I think that's all the participants here believe that we should support the long life learning. And the slogan of long life learning means that you will learn from birth until you die. Yeah. So if we are agree with the long life learning, then we should shift our paradigm. We should shift our role as a keeper or a dispenser of knowledge to organizers of learning opportunities in the classroom. Teacher is no longer a source of knowledge for all the students. They are the organizers, the facilitators of learning. Yeah, next. Yeah, let's see two metaphor of teachers, the role of teachers in differentiated classroom, as Tomlinson mentioned in her book. The first metaphor is teacher as a director of music orchestra. So when you watch a music orchestra from television, or maybe when you come to the concert, there is one leader of the orchestra. She or he is a director. And he or she leads many instrument players. Some are playing guitar or violin or piano. All the members have different ability. So sometimes the leader, the director only work with the violin players. Sometimes they work with the guitar players. but at the end, they do the rehearsal and they will have the good harmony when they have a concert. So as a teacher, we should know what is our students good at, their strengths and their weaknesses, and how can we help them? How can we help them to practice, to improve their skills so they can be a star in the future? Next, another metaphor that represents the role of teachers in differentiated classroom is that teacher's role is like a coach. Maybe some of you here like to watch football, yeah, like to watch football. And you know, if we have, let's say, Indonesia has Messi, Ronaldo, or Salah, Mane, Keane, all of the best striker in the world we have. Can we win the competition if we join the tournament? No, I bet no. Why? Because they are in the same position. Striker, yeah, striker. In the football team, we need a goalkeeper. There should be some defender. There should be midfield player. There should be a striker. So coach should know the position of each player and how do they improve their skills to be a best player in their position. It also should happen in the classroom. Teachers should know the strength and the weaknesses of the students, their learning style, when they are learning the best, the learning approach, what is strategies to implement it in the classroom. So they should know. And if you watch football in the television, what the coach do during the games? Does he or he only sitting on the bench looking at their players playing? No, they are very what we call very expressive. They will run from the side to side, give instruction to all the players, and you can see how disappointed him if there is a good opportunity, but the striker cannot convert this into goal. How they feel very sad when they fail, how they're happy when they won the game. It's also the same thing in the classroom. We should see every single student. During the group work, you should walk from one group to another group to look at how the group are facing difficulty with the task that you're given. So that's another metaphor about the teacher's role in differentiated classroom. We are a coach, and students in our classroom have different ability. They can be a striker, they can be a goalkeeper. So yes, we have students in the classroom. Maybe they're good at math, they're good at science, they're good at arts. Some maybe will be a singer, some maybe will be a master chef, some maybe will be a scientist. All right, next. So now let's see the framework of differentiated instruction. You see the foundation down below is effective learning environment. Yeah. Effective learning environment. So the most important thing is teachers should support or design the learning environment that make students comfort to learn. So then teachers can implement it DI in their classroom. So what can teachers can differentiate it? The first one is teachers can differentiate a content, process, products, and these three elements should be differentiated according to three things: student readiness, interest, and learning profile. So this is the framework of differentiated instruction. The most important thing is we should create an effective learning environment to the classroom. Next. So what is the effective learning environment? So we can create the effective learning environment when everyone feels welcome to that classroom. There is no bullying in the classroom. Everyone greets their friends warmly. So everyone feels comfortable in the class. That's the most important thing. And there is a mutual respect. The respect is non-negotiable. We should learn our kids to respect each other. If this happen, if some students don't respect their friends or don't respect the teachers, the learning process won't take place. And of course, DI or differentiated classroom won't be happening in that classroom. And then effective learning environment means that students feel safe in the classroom physically and mentally. And every learner help their friends to grow. And teachers, of course, help every learner to grow. And the goals of the teachers in the classroom is not only to deliver curriculum, but the most important thing is teacher focus on the student success. So to be able to support students to success in their interest, in their field, then teachers and students should collaborate for success. Sometimes maybe you need to discuss with the students about how will you group the students. Ask them to group by themselves. Or sometimes maybe you can negotiate the kind of assignment and task that you give to the students. And the last one is there is a fairness in the classroom. The fairness here means that you don't instruct something to all the students, and you don't expecting the same result of every single lesson to all students. Because as we said, some students maybe are slow learner, they have different pace and rates in learning. So you should understand the fairness in this classroom. So this is the aspect that teachers should promote to support the effective learning environment, so then they can implement it, the differentiated instruction. Next. So when we saw the framework, teachers can differentiate three things. The first is content. What is content? Content is curriculum, what the students need to learn, and what we teach. Differentiating content in the classroom can be done in two ways. First, you differentiating the content. We can adapt what we teach. In this, maybe you know some students are fast learner and very bright. Maybe you will give a complex assignment to them, while others just the simple one. That's the first way to differentiate the content. And the second way is you can adapt the curriculum, and you give different you're promoting different ways for students to learn. For example, you learned about the Indonesian history. Let's see, learn about the what we call about the G30 SPKI, for example. Maybe you can ask some student if they like to watch, they can watch a video. If they like to read, they can read from the book. Or maybe if there's any comic, they can learn from the comics. So we can adapt or modify how we give students access to what we want them to learn, especially now during the pandemic. Maybe you can ask some of students to watch from YouTube channel, or maybe you can share some reading materials for some students who like reading more than watching, right? So that's how to differentiate the content. And again, content is what the students need to learn and what we teach, or it's like mostly the curriculum. What is the curriculum ask us to teach? This is the first element of differentiation. And the second one, next slide. Now, next slide. This is the process. Activities in which students engage in order to make sense of our master of content. Yeah, good differentiated activities are interesting to the students, call a student to think a high level, and cause the student to use a key skills to understand a key idea. Yeah. What does it mean? As a teacher, if you want to differentiate the process in the classroom, we should implement it. Various strategies. And I do believe that all the participants here, the teachers, has already implemented various strategies. In Indonesian context, maybe you already familiar with Pak Ikam, yeah, Pak Ikam Gembrot, ya, pembelajaran aktif, inovatif, kreatif, gembira, dan berbobot, ya. Or we learn about collaborative learning, and we learn so many, yeah, we learn many of teaching strategies. The thing is, when we come to the classroom, sometimes we do the similar thing with our teachers in the past. We know all the strategies, but when we come to the classroom, we just deliver one strategies, a tutorial or lecturer class only. But here, the DI supporters ask us to differentiate process, to differentiate activities, to use various strategies from day to day. So then we know maybe some students who are best learning using audio. Some students best learn when they read the books. Now, you should create such a different activities. All right, next, the second element of the process. And the third one is product. Yeah. Product is culminating project that asks the students to rehearse, apply, and extend what he or she has learned in a unit, or in a semester, or even in a year. So a very simple way to look at the product is to look at how project-based learning happened. When you implement the project-based learning, you give a freedom to students to develop the projects, and you give a freedom to students how to access the information for them to develop the projects. And at the end, you will get the very interesting result. Yeah. And by implementing the project-based, not project-based only, even the problem-based, you can see how students excellent way, how you can assess students' knowledge, understanding, and skill. So then the assessment is not only for grading, but also for giving a feedback to your students to improve their learning. So that three things that we can differentiate in the classroom: content, process, and products. And what should we consider when we differentiate of these three elements? We should consider first, next slide. We should consider student readiness, student skills and understanding of a topic. Like I said before, students come to this classroom with different level of understanding, different level of knowledge. So if you are teaching the year one, for example, maybe some students already know how to read, but some students, they just know the alphabet only. So a task that's a good match for student readiness extent, that students' knowledge, a task that's good will extend student knowledge, understanding, and skills. And of course, a little bit beyond the student can do independently. So it's very important to understand student readiness. For example, you are teaching a secondary school, year 7, and you are expecting all the students come to your class, let's say you are math teachers, know already about the fraction. But somehow, when you get some students, they don't know about the fraction yet. They don't maybe even like math. So then they come to the class with different readiness and different understanding. And this is our role as a teacher, our task, our assignment as a teacher, to design a classroom that match with all the students' readiness. Next. Interest. What is interest is students' curiosity or student passion or in our student. Yeah. Understanding student interest help teacher to engage or hook students on the topic at hand. Yeah. It's important to understand student interest because, like I said before, some students may be like good at math and science, and some they like art more than science and math, or some maybe like more history more or social science more, or they have the passion in that. So we, as a teacher, we need to understand their interests. Yeah, especially here for primary school students. Yeah, because in primary school students, you have teach, I think, several subjects, and you should understand your student interest. Yeah. All right, interest-based instruction helps students realize that there is much between school and their own desire to learn. And it's also demonstrating the connectedness between all learning. That's why we have what we call contextual teaching learning. So what we learn at school, students can see the bridge between what we learn at school and what happened in daily life. Using skill or ideas familiar to students as a bridge to idea skill as familiar to them, and enhancing student motivation to learn. So when teacher can implement it, interest-based instruction in the classroom, their students feel full of spirit when they learn. And of course, then they will motivate to your classroom, feel motivated to come to the classroom. So this is the second one, interest. And next, yeah, last but not least, students should differentiate content, process, and product, yeah, by considering learning profile. Yeah, learning profile means the ways in which that student learned the best. There are 4 aspects of learning profile. Yeah, first one is learning style. There's so many literature suggested that every student maybe have different kinds of different style of learning. Maybe like more auditory, more visual, more kinesthetic, or maybe more audiovisual. So then we as teachers should understand about the learning profile. And the second one is intelligence preference. It's quite similar with how their students' readiness, how fast they learned, Are they a faster learner or slow learner, or how ready they are? And gender preference. Sometimes in some cultures, there is a gender preference. Maybe in some cultures, you're not allowed to mix boys and girls in some groups, or maybe in some age that girls doesn't like to work with boys. That's happened, especially for pre-teens or early stage of teens. And also cultural influence preference. How students grow up, in which values they grow, and what the cultures that influence them when they are young kids will influence the way they learn. So teachers should pay attention to the learning profile, so then every day you can do different strategies. Maybe one day you can accommodate like one type of learning style, but another day another type of learning style. You can group a student with a mixed gender, but maybe in sometimes you can group student based on the same gender, for example. So that's the elements of differentiated instruction. Next. So some strategies to implement differentiated instruction is the learning station. Yeah, the learning station, you can implement these kind of strategies from kindergarten to senior high school. Yeah, maybe you learn about some topic and you have different corner with different activities, so you can ask them to move from one station to another station to learn the same topic. This one strategy is to implement GI. Next. Yeah. You can use a task card, yeah, different task card. So maybe for one topic, you design like 5 or 6 card, and every group you ask to do different things. It's kind of collaborative learning, of course. Yeah, and later on they can share what they got and in that card. So this is another strategy to implement differentiate instruction. Next. Journal time. Yeah. You can ask students to create a journal. For example, you want them to do to make a summary. You can ask them to write a summary in the form of a journal. Maybe they can write a summary in the form of what we call it concept mapping, for example, or mind mapping, or it's really about different the various strategies. Yeah, when you ask them to make a journal, yeah, they can use their books, they can use the blogs, they can use software. It's really promoting the best way they can do the journal. So you ask them to make a journal or to do a summary, for example, but you give them a freedom to choose any model that they want. Yes, next. And of course, cooperative learning. I believe that all the participants here are very familiar with all kinds of cooperative learning. By implementing a cooperative learning in the classroom, it's kind of strategies to implement it at DI. But please remember to use different cooperative learning strategy in different lessons. don't stick only with one or two or three type of cooperative learning. Don't stick only with the think pair share, for example. So every single lesson you teach with TPS because you like that. Just try to implement every cooperative learning strategies that you have in your classroom. Next. And another strategies is to implement open-ended projects. Open-ended projects mean that you have the project and give the students freedom to create that project based on their style. For example, you ask them to create, like if you are teaching math and you ask a learner to make a shape of a triangle, just ask them to make a triangle that's the line. Or for example, you ask them to create the ant house, yeah, or what do you call it, the glass house. Just every single project that you ask students to create, just ask them to do it freely, yeah. So it will promote their creativity. So it can be done from kindergarten also to senior high school. For example, you are teaching chemistry in the senior high, and you have the topic of acid-base titration. You can ask them to create their own experiment using acid and base that available in the laboratorium. So they have a freedom, they can think creatively. So it's another strategy to implement differentiated instruction. So I think we quite lack of the time. How next? And of course, after we implemented the strategies in the differentiated classroom, so we, as a teacher, should assess our students. What makes DI classroom different than more unitary classroom is when we do assessment in DI classroom, the main goal is not to look at or to produce a grade for giving them 80, 85, 90, A, B, C, but the goal is to give them feedback based on their performance. So the assessment you should do the assessment during the process. Yeah, it can be instruction dependent assessment, yeah, student dependent assessment, and of course informed continued instruction. So even though like me, when I was in primary, secondary schools, that all the assessment for all the subjects is the same. What's that? That's a kind of a daily test, mid test, and final test. And it's only for looking for the grades. Is the student get 80, 85, 90? It's rarely that the ongoing assessment happened in the classroom when I was in the school. Yeah, but now I think teachers are equipped with authentic assessment. The authentic assessment is kind of assessment in the DI classroom. If you are implementing authentic assessment in your classroom, means that you are already assess your students in regard to DI. Next. But what about now? We are learning from home. There is a pandemic of COVID. We don't meet our students. Yes, we still can implement DI during the pandemic. This is some idea. You can assess your student interest and profile learning. Yeah, like I said, some students maybe like to watch the video, maybe some like to read the blog, like to read the books. And you can use variety of media. You can use webinar, you can use Zoom, Google Meet, but you can also use social media. You can use WhatsApp. You can create WhatsApp group for the whole classroom. You can create a WhatsApp group for a small group. So you can use a variety of media during this pandemic and use assignment of varying complexity based on your student readiness and skills. Maybe you will ask them to create a poster about the COVID. They can draw, they can create a poster using the application, or from the simple application to the complex application. This kind of differentiated instruction during the pandemic. So flexibility group, yeah, even though we do learning at home, maybe sometimes you give assignment for students to work in group 2 or 3 or group 4, or sometimes you just ask them to do the assignment alone. And differentiated on project. We are living in the technology era now, so maybe you can ask your students to create different projects with the same topics. They can create so many things. For example, you learned for every subject you can ask your students to make a project, but they can do differently. For example, you teach about the Indonesian history, about the Buddhist kingdom, or Hinduism kingdom, or Islamic kingdom. You can ask the students to make a project to tell the story about the history by using comic, for example, or creating flip books, or creating a video. There are so many differentiated on project that you can ask your student to create. So these are some ideas to implement differentiated instruction during the pandemic. Right? Next. Yes. So to sum up, we only have 20 minutes. I do apologize, Pak Willy. The rule of times of DI is be clear on the matter of your subject matter. You should know the content of your subject and what content that should be delivered to your students. What is very important content, and what content is suit for some group of students, and which content is fit with another group of students. So assessment is a roadmap for teachers thinking and planning. It's not about creating a grade for the final report. And lessons for all students should emphasize critical and creative thinking. Lesson for all students should be engaging. So every students participate in your classroom. There should be a balance between student selected and teacher assigned tasks and working arrangements. So a kind of democratic classroom. And finally, before I close this presentation, next slide, please. Yeah, this further reading. If you want some materials on the DI, you can send me an email. I have some ebooks that I can share. And let me close this presentation again by quoting Tomlinson. This is few materials. In the end, all learners need your energy, your heart, and your mind. They have that in common because they are young humans. How they need you, however, differs. Unless we understand and respond to these differences, we fail many learners. So thank you so much. And I give this room again to Pa Willy. Thank you for your participation, and maybe we move to the question section.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Munas, for the presentation. It's very interesting to know the basic concept of differentiated instruction, the goals of DI, and also some strategies to implement differentiated instruction in our classroom. Now we're moving on to the questions and answer session. Pak Munas, we have some questions coming from the participants. I'm going to share them with you on the screen.
Okay.
Wait a moment. So here they are, Pak Munas. Okay, so we are going to answer the first three questions. The first question is, should we support streaming? Wait, let me make it bigger. Should we support streaming students based on their academic performance at school, and why? That was the first question. And then the second question is, for best practice of DI, what do you think about SEM, school-wide enrichment model from Renzulli? He and his team developed the practice with SEM for reading, math, science, and social science. And the third question is, how is a differentiated classroom different from universal design? So,
is differentiated classroom different from
universal design?
All right.
Okay, so I think you can respond to these three questions, Pak Munas, please.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. The first one is, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Why should we support streaming students based on their academic performance at school? Yes, the academic performance at school is kind of for me, it's part of student readiness. Yeah, we have students with different ability in the school and in our classroom. Some are fast learners, some are slow learner, so they learned at different rates. Why should we design lessons based on their academic performance? It's to engage them to learn, to make the learning comfortable for all the students. For example, you have very smart students in the classroom, and we have the similar task. And some students, they can finish the task very easy and very quick. So then after they finish, what they're doing? Some of them start to make noisy in the classroom, bothering their students, their peers. So why? Because every student has different in terms of their readiness, their academic performance, and we as a teacher want to improve their based on their skills, so then they can succeed in their future. So this is part of student readiness, I think. Yeah, so it's important for us. But please, as a teacher, we may differentiate the task for the students, but not giving more tasks to this to students based on academic performance. Sometimes teacher give more tasks to students because they think that the student is very smart. So after they finish a work, they give another work, and student feels uncomfortable. Why should they complete the more tasks than other friends? So the best thing is to give a different complex, different level of assignment, because they are at different level. Yeah. So maybe you can look at the tiered assessment, yeah, or tier lesson strategies, tier strategies in the classroom. Yeah. So it's very important, I think. Yeah. To support the environment in the classroom. For best practice, what do you think about a sim school-wide enrichment model from Renzoli? He and his team developed the practice system for reading, math, and science, science and social science. I think it's aligned. It's aligned with differentiate instruction. The Renzoli idea is aligned with differentiate instruction, because the goal is similar. Yeah, to provide better strategies and learning model to support the successful of every learner. Yeah. So yeah, it's line and it's kind of a complementer. And how is differentiate classroom different from universal design? It's different. It's quite a lot from the simple to the extreme. Yeah. The most extreme lesson, the classroom that me and team from the Institute design is, there is a classroom very different from the another classroom. We have a lazy corner, or we have a carpet in that classroom, or we have a computer, a view computer, and we just ask the students to do the assignment freely. Yeah, which is you cannot see in the universal design. They can use they can do the assignment while they are sitting on the floor, or maybe they're lying down on the floor, but still they learned. Yeah. So it's quite yeah, it's not quite, it's different a lot between the universal design and TI strategy. But I think some teachers already implemented this kind of strategies. However, they just don't know that yet they already implemented DI in the classroom. Yeah. That's, I think, Pa Willy.
Okay, thank you, Pak Munas, for the answer. So I think we still have time for 3 more questions.
All right.
So here they are. Okay. Questions number 4. Should we make different assessment based on students' different abilities in the classroom? Should we apply some strategies or methods in the learning process based on students' ability to reach standard competencies? And questions number 5. Is differentiated instruction related to the use of students' auditory or visual sensory to learn new things as well? That's number 5. And then number 6, there is a case. Some schools put the students based on their academic achievement. For example, class A consists of students with the rank of 1 to 40. Then class B and other classes are the rest ranks. Do you think that is a wise and effective way? Is the school concerned with students' differentiations? So, Pak Munas?
Yes, thank you for the very difficult question. Yeah. So we make different assessment based on student different abilities in the classroom. Yes and no. Yes and no. Yeah. If you already know student different ability in the classroom, we can sometimes we can create different assessment based on their abilities. Yeah. But sometimes maybe we just do the same assessment. The teaching is art. Yeah, teaching is art. So when you feel that your students with let's say the the high achiever or the smart or for whatever you call it, have a different assessment and they feel that it's not fair, maybe you can use the same assessment for the next time. But personally, you can approach them to do the same thing at other lessons. So yes, it's important to make a different assessment based on student different abilities in the classroom, because the goal of the assessment is to provide a feedback to every learner. And then should we apply some strategy or methods in the learning process based on student ability to reach standard competency? Yes, I think so, because I do believe that teachers here have been trained with various strategies or teaching philosophies. So the homework now, the task now is to implement it, all the strategies that you got during the teacher's training in your classroom. All right. Should we differentiate instruction related to the use of student auditory or visual sensory? Yes, it's a part of understanding learning profile of each student. The good thing, of course, you cannot, it's difficult to implement different strategy at the same time. So the simple strategies is to use some strategies that, let's say, match with auditory students from this lesson, and the next lesson you can use the strategy that match with visual sensory students, or maybe another lesson you can implement a strategy that more match with kinesthetic. But I think based on the some research that I read, every human being has all the different style with a different level actually. So yeah, sometimes they look more auditory than visual, because we are a human being, we are a complex creatures. There is many things that influence our emotion. So maybe sometimes students with auditory, you see them as auditory learner. When they have a good mood, they can switch to the like visual learner. Yeah, so it's important to differentiate it based on students' profile, and one of them is a learning style. Yeah, to accommodate all the learner style. All right, some schools put the students based on their academic achievement. Do you think that is a wise and effective way? Is this concept student differentiation? All right. Having a more homogeneous students in one classroom rather than heterogeneous students, it doesn't mean that we cannot implement it differentiated classroom. Yeah, even though the students are grouping based on their academic achievement, they have different learning profile. They have different interests. Yeah, so that the classroom based on their academic achievement or not based on academic achievement is need to implement differentiated instruction with different strategies. Do you think that that is a wise and effective way? Me personally, it's really depend. It's really depend. Yeah. For example, your school has a goal to be Olympiad winners. Yeah. For achieve that goal, of course, you have to classify a student based on their achievement and their readiness. So in some school, you can see that they have a class for Olympiad students. So do you think this is wise? I think to some extent that wise, but it is important to tell the students that in the reality, there you will meet people from different background, different ability. Yeah. And I'm supporting mostly the heterogeneous classroom, me personally, rather than a homogeneous classroom. So, but is that effective and wise? To some extent, it's, yeah, we can see like that. But having heterogeneous classroom for me is more challenging rather than having a smart student in one classroom. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer, Pak Munas. I think the time is up for the question and answer session. Unfortunately, we cannot answer all the questions from the participants, but if you, for the participants, if you want to explore more on differentiated instruction, or if you want to ask some more questions to our today's presenter, you can send your questions through email to munasramli.gmail.com. Is it correct, Pak Munas?
Yes, munasramli@gmail.com. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
if you
can,
if the participant want there's some ebook. I have some ebooks about the DI. So if they want, they can send me an email too.
okay, so this is the email. So you can send your questions to Pak Munas through email. It's at munasramli@gmail.com. Thank you very much, Pak Munas, for sharing with us in today's occasion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eduversal, and thank you for all the participants. Hope this will be meaningful
I mean, okay.
for the next stage of this difficult time because this pandemic.
Yes, okay. And for all participants, as we know that at the end of the webinar, there is an assessment that you need to take as the requirement to get a certificate. So I will share the link of today's assessment. Wait a moment. So this is the link for today's assessment. Yeah, it's bit.ly/certificate day 5. And the link will be available until 11:30. And I want to remind you once again to write your email address correctly, because if you don't, we're not able to send your certificate. And I want to tell you that all the materials of our DTP webinar series and also the recordings will be put on our DTP website. Is it on educam.co.id? It's on educam.co.id. So you can visit the website for, to access the materials and also the recording of our webinar. Okay. I think that's enough for today's session. Pak Munas, before we end the session, is it possible for you to give us the final remarks?
All right. Yeah, thank you so much for the participation, and hope we can see we can meet offline, not online only, in the near futures. And of course, as a teacher, our goal is to support and help our students to learn in their best way. So you as a teacher know most about your students in the classroom and try to explore the classroom. The classroom is really your laboratorium to help them to achieve this success in their life in the future. So that's all, I think. Thank you so much, and I do apologize if there is a mistakes.
Thank you very much,
presentation.
Pak Munas, and thank you for all participants for attending our today's webinar about differentiated instruction. Hopefully we can benefit from what Pak Munas has shared with us today. And on behalf of Eduversal, I said thank you very much once again and have a nice day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.